A few days ago, Rolling Stone magazine, which used to talk about music but now just hates Donald Trump, put out an article called, quote, "Every Awful Thing Trump Has Promised to Do in a Second Term." It was actually more fun than I think they intended. So they teased the list as a, quote, "slew of terrifying proposals," and correctly note that Trump is angry about getting played by the deep state first time around, and he's coming back with eyes wide open. Or as Rolling Stone puts it, Trump's ready to, quote, "take the wheel and hit the gas with laser focus." So what are these terrifying proposals? Rolling Stone kicks off with cheap oil. Well, they kick off with prosecuting Biden's corrupt DOJ, which seems like an excellent idea. Then they move on to the cheap oil. Cheap oil, as you know, offends the Earth fairies who want to sink Florida, and yet Trump has promised to approve every pending drilling application to get that big, beautiful oil into America's hungry gas tanks. Of course, that would send oil prices back towards the $2 they were last time Trump was president, which is quite terrifying. Meanwhile, Trump has promised to pull out of the delusional global warming Paris Accords, and that he would reverse Biden orders from renewable mandates to gas stove bans, so cue the angry fairies. Next up is immigration, where Trump has promised to send the military to the border and deport illegal immigrants, quote, "by the millions per year." Having spent most of my life as an immigrant, including in Mexico, this is surprisingly easy. Just tell them they have 90 days to leave or they'll be imprisoned. Presto, nature finds a way. And then for these stragglers, he might bring our boys home from Syria or Ukraine or wherever Biden's wanted them off to help escort the illegals off-site. Apropos, Rolling Stone is also terrified that Trump might, quote, "reevaluate America's participation in NATO," or even, God forbid, end the war in the Ukraine. Now, one of the odder features of modern progressives, of course, how quickly they fell in love with war. But as Trump has repeatedly said, the U.S. gets shafted on NATO, serving as unpaid mercenaries whilst our country crumbles. So good riddance. I am skipping a couple goofy ones like invading Mexico or banning abortion. Progressives actually believe these things. And that brings us to the next credible one on crime. So Trump has promised to send the National Guard to help cities get control of their streets, which probably strikes your typical New Yorker or San Franciscan as a reasonable prospect while they dodge their daily quota of poop. I'm not saying they'll vote for Trump, but they might find a nice little Netflix series to binge come Election Day. The list goes on, quote, "gutting the federal government," meaning Washington spends less, "defining gender, pardoning the heroes of J6, safeguarding the Second Amendment, and returning education to the states." But the final one that really grabbed me was on free speech. So Rolling Stone is positively livid that Trump might stop government from censoring everything from COVID to the vax to the BLM riots to the stolen election. This, more than anything, highlights how far the modern left has fallen, from champions of free speech to a million little screeching Stalins. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. There's a lot at stake this next election. During COVID, the left essentially launched their takeover, the one they spent decades building in the so-called long march through the institutions. Gloriously having thrown off their masks, it turns out the people don't want it, which is, of course, driving the left mad. It may well get worse before it gets better, but there is light at the end of that tunnel. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.